just about half of all this manufacturing money is going toward electric vehicle batteries and semiconductors. And it's multifaceted, this thing. Like there are retailers. I was reading about this sock company that wants to have socks. They want to be able to make these socks faster and get them out quicker.
Well, because they're drawing a contrast, because a lot of this money is going to these high-tech things, but at the same time, there are a bunch of people. It's Future Stitch is their name. Future Stitch. Right. They are building a factory in Oceanside, California. But yeah, a lot of companies. So something like that, they do things where they need to get them out quickly. So it's if there's two teams going to the NBA finals or whatever, they want to be able to sell their socks really quickly.
Not only
if there's
that,
breakdowns in the supply chain, they can't do that.
Right. So not only that, but they don't want to store excess inventory in their stores. They want to be able to replenish stock from like an actual factory.
Yeah.
And apparently just having made in the USA is holding...
it carries a lot of cachet. Yeah.
Carries a lot. Yeah. I remember just when just like guitars. I remember the cheaper Fender Stratocaster was made in Mexico, but the American one was like twice as much, and it was nicer. It was carried more heft.
I mean, there's definitely pretty much everything outsourced all their manufacturing to China, and there's now very little difference between brands that had a reputation for being very well made. They're all just made in the same factories and stuff, and you don't really get the same value for spending all that money on the same thing. I mean, I know I don't want to. Like, part of the reason I wanted to get a Yonex racket was they're made in Japan. They're not just made in some factory in China.
By the way, did you see that? What's his name? Warren Buffett just invested a fuck ton of money. Yeah. He's over in Japan, and he invested in like the top 5 investment trading houses out there. Just thought that was interesting. And I think he's selling some bonds in yen or something like that. I don't understand. But anywho, I saw an interesting stat that 10% of the private sector is manufacturing jobs. That's a good amount.
You know how much it used to be?
20? No, way more than that. Yeah. In World War II, it was like...
So that's the thing. There's 2 extreme understatements. So it was a bit frustrating because, one of the things they talk about is how many people used to work in factories. They say U.S. industrial might helped win World War II when nearly half of private sector employees worked in factories.
Jesus.
That portion plunged after the war thanks to automation and U.S. companies seeking lower costs overseas. You know, they kind of just gloss over the fact that they shipped your fucking job away for cheaper labor and then just kind of
those margins
decimated cities and towns. But the other one is, again, they kind of just gloss over it. They say, but last year, U.S. production capacity showed its strongest growth since 2015 after pandemic-driven shortages and delays caused manufacturers to rethink their far-flung supply chains. And I think that is just a crazy way of putting it. I mean, anyone who lived through it, it was a fucking embarrassment, right? Everyone just kind of scratching their heads going, Jesus Christ, we can't even make masks. We can't make any kind of PPE, let alone more important things like respirators, we were just kind of sitting around going, fuck.
Yeah, we are a consumption economy. We are an entertainment economy.
And so people really started to think about this differently.
Yeah.
And what kind of this whole intricate, complicated system mess we made for ourselves means for us.
Yeah. There are now so many more manufacturing jobs available than there are people to fill them. There's like 800,000. They need like 800,000 more workers to do this. The good news is, sort of, in some of these areas where existing factory workers have experience, they can just, apparently it's kind of like plug and play where, hey, I have experience working previously in a fucking, I don't know, shoemaking factory, and you can just work at a cheese factory too.
Yeah, that's what they're talking about in Lansing, Michigan, where there's a bunch of people who were trained on some of these some of these factories. Yeah,
it's wild that they got this fucking. Well, I guess they're locally. There's dairy farms out there, and they be making cheese.
Someone's got to make it.
Giant blocks of cheese. Where are they fucking?
Dude, they said as big as a dishwasher.
Yes, I saw that. It's fucking insane. It must be for restaurant supply or something. Jesus Christ.
Well, you got to ship it. You're probably not shipping them in little small blocks.
Yeah, it makes sense to ship a big
You say, hey,
block.
we'll give it to you, Trader Joe's. You cut it up.
Yeah.
All right?
Yeah.
You got all those damn guys in Hawaiian shirts. Why don't you put them to work? Chop up some cheese.
It's a double-edged sword, though. This onshoring of manufacturing, because, and as is the case with so Black & Decker, the Black & Decker power tool guy, I think it's called Stanley Black & Decker now because they merged. But the CEO said it used to be where you would outsource to China or Mexico, but now they're realizing that when they onshore, there's an opportunity to build with automation in mind. So now he said you might have 50 to 75 people on a line in China or Mexico, but the automated solution that they've created in North Carolina, the current version, has about 10 to 12 people on that line because of the high level of automation. And the 2.0 version, he said, looks like it's going to get down to 2 to 3 people on the line. From 50 to 75 in Mexico or China to 2 to 3 people. That's fucking bananas, man. That's insane. So it's like I said, double-edged sword. Yeah, we're bringing it back to America, but also for what? For a bunch of robots to do it instead of people?
They're also pushing to bring them back to a lot of places where there's not strong union presences, so they don't have to do that kind of
naturally.
So, yeah.
Yeah, unions have their concerns because it's going to require fewer people to actually do these jobs, and it turns out that it's a lot cheaper to do some of this stuff stateside because of the automation, and that's going to mean less jobs, actually.
Right. So it's weird because at the same time as there's a bunch of hope because a lot of people are seeing these factories springing up around their towns.
Yeah.
And it's having an effect just on other industries, right? So, suppliers that cluster around factories create a multiplier effect, making them worthy of public support. Other factories are popping up in the area. Hundreds of workers have swarmed over the site since construction began last year. And, that means that people are now like getting food trucks and going, and the mayor of St. John's, Roberta Coco, said that the factory has invigorated her town's shopping district, where once empty storefronts now host new businesses.
We love this.
Who started a clothing boutique called Rise Up a year ago, said she's thinking about putting a rental apartment above the shop to cater to visiting executives. So there's a lot of hope around this, but there's a lot of traditional worries with the way corporate America is going to structure these things. Yeah, this dork, this absolute nerd, David Mendel, he's a professor of history of engineering at MIT, but he's also a VC. He does VC in industrial transformation. He said he thinks rather that we're at the start of a new factory cycle in the United States and a return to a more traditional way of doing things. Right, but it's a constant cycle where this is, and then in however many decades or whatever, they're gonna start shipping them back off to cheap labor
or to robots.
Or at that point, the whole goddamn world will be on fire.
Yeah,
so
no kidding.
You can build it in your backyard or your bunker. Otherwise, you're not getting it.
And keeping up with the spirit of the origins of this show, I thought I'd take it upon myself to look up some automation stocks. These are not at all any kind of recommendation to buy. It's just I found it interesting just how many there are. If you want to put them on a list and watch them and learn and read about them, these are just a few. There's Teradyne, UiPath, Honeywell, Rockwell, Alteryx, which does software, I think. PTC also does software. Here's a great company name, John Bean Technology.
Oh, that's LL Bean's brother.
Very good, very good.
That's real. His brother didn't want to go into the boot industry, and
he's like, I'm going to make computer stuff instead. John Bean, and then I was looking at some other ones that don't really have to do with automation in factories, but there was one that I found called Accuray that does like a surgical fucking blade that also doubles as it uses like radiation. I don't know what the fuck it does. But
so
then,
that means buy.
Oh, absolutely. No, it doesn't. Intuitive Surgical is one that I had been hearing about for years. This fucking company, apparently like every 36 seconds, there's a surgery that uses one of their things. It's called the Da Vinci camera or something. It's just like every surgery uses Intuitive Surgical's shit. And then there's another one called Stryker that does the same kind of shit. It's just,
God, I feel like that's a weird name for a surgery. That sounds like a defense company.
Stryker? Yeah.
Stryker with the Y.
It's always weird looking at these companies like John Bean Technologies. Never heard of it before in my life. And it's like a fucking $200
Remember that video of the guy that went kind of viral because he like pulled up in his convertible? And I guess it was one of those guys who goes, "Cool car, what do you do?" or whatever. And he was like, it was something like that. I forget exactly. But he was like, you know how at the doctor's office you have to blah, blah, blah? And they were like, yeah. He's like, that's because of me. And then he just like drives off. And I guess every time X thing happens, he gets paid, which is great. That's a good way. Yeah.
Yeah, we love that.
We're happy for him.
My name is John Bean.
I'm John Bean.
Hey, you ever heard of John Bean Technologies? No? Well, that's me.
What do? I'm John Bean.
Yeah. Oh, I see you're wearing LL Bean. That's my shitty younger brother.
Speaking of LL Bean,
he didn't understand computers.
They do make some stuff in America. I don't know if they make all of it, but for example, they make one of the bags I have from them is made in the USA in Maine, and it's so fucking sturdy. It's like
nice. All right, LL Bean bag.
Yeah,
I just remember my first exposure to LL Bean as a child.
Sure.
Between Taiwan and LL Bean was just seeing those like Subarus or whichever one that was. They did a partnership with LL Bean. It was like LL Bean.
I remember Ford did like an Eddie Bauer.
Oh, maybe that's what I'm thinking of.
I don't know.
The fuck Eddie Bauer was.
It sounds like Subaru and LL Bean would team up. That seems like a name a more iconic duo.
Yeah, I think it was Subaru and LL Bean.
LL Bean, they don't even have stores out here, so you probably never even saw that.
Yeah, I've never been to an LL Bean store.
I don't think they have them.
It was the Subaru Outback LL Bean edition.
The surprisingly luxurious Lexus Fighting Station Wagon.
Ah, there we go.
God, a simpler time, huh?
Yeah.
Just Subarus and Lexus fighting it out. Who's got the more luxurious station wagon?
Yeah. Yeah, there it is in all of its glory.